I wanted to share how I put these concepts into my Master Design Capstone project. And this is a research-informed design that we are required to do as part of the Masters of Landscape Architecture program. So I won't go into all the details of it, but just how some of these concepts came into play. So the problem that I was addressing was repeated destructive flooding in Conway, South Carolina. And this is a city that's about 15 miles inland from the Atlantic Ocean in South Carolina. And there's nuisance flooding throughout the city of Conway, but these repeated storm events that were causing mass destruction sort of pushed the city to rethink what they were doing, which was just repairing homes every single time. And so using a federal grant, the city acquired parcels that had been repeatedly damaged by storms, and they wanted to use these parcels to help with future flooding. So those parcels are in red on the map, and it shows a study area in yellow that where these parcels are clustered around a swamp area. And then these parcels, this image shows what one of these looks like now, with home removed and just now grass maintained by the city. And one way to frame the project in sustainability is to talk about the point that Allen et al. Have in their work, supply side sustainability. And in this, they talk about managing the system and not the outputs. So in this case, that is learning about and learning how to manage hydrological processes in the site area, rather than managing just the damage to homes after every single storm that are caused by those hydrological processes. And so in learning about these processes, it was first important to learn about the land uses, specific or current land use, and what this land was before, which was wetland, and how that changed those hydrological processes. So loss of the wetland on the site and much of the wetlands in the surrounding areas led to a lot of these flooding issues. This quote here is from a watershed study of the area, and it's pointing to that issue, that it was land use change that caused a lot of this. So I studied wetland types and protected areas nearby to understand how these hydrological processes function in working ecosystems, and how they were degraded on the site. And forested wetlands are particularly effective in managing floodwater, and these images are of forested wetlands, bottomland hardwood forests and blackwater forested wetlands in this area. And these are natural flood sponges, but they've been filled and developed on in a lot of Horry County, where the site is located. So based on this, I knew that centering the design on wetland restoration would be really important, because this restoration feeds into ecological benefits, flood risk reduction, and community assets. So at the first meeting with the client, which is the city of Conway, they talked a lot about what they wanted, which was a retention pond, like this image on the left, and how it would have sort of this Disney World aesthetic, but a solution like this is a really unsustainable system, because it requires constant maintenance input, and it provides very few ecosystem services. So my collaborators and I tried to encourage the city towards these bioregional landscapes that harness that are really effective at mitigating flooding. And so I knew it was important to kind of leverage these two ideas. And finding this sweet spot between sort of the orderly landscape that the city wanted and this like functioning, sustainable, ecological landscape is key. And it's something that many have written about, including Joan Nassauer in her work, Messy Ecosystems, Orderly Frames. And so to address what the city wanted, this ordered landscape, I developed a sort of formal landscape design. The wetland is enclosed in this oval, and boardwalks running through the wetland are dividing it distinctly into these different wetland types with very different plant palettes, so people can see these differences, and it appears to be managed. And then it incorporates different play elements and an amphitheater. And the engineering collaborators did a lot of analyses to show how much floodwater that something like this could retain. And the city was actually really excited about this, and enough so that when I worked together with the engineers to put together sort of a master plan document, the city council approved it, and they're looking for funding for grant funding to move into the design phase. So kind of at the end of this, I thought, how could you go even further to use this rule of thumb, this sustainability rule of thumb? And one answer is to not only look at the site, but look at the larger landscape practices. And so the site is this red dot on the watershed map here. And if you really wanted to mitigate flooding in the site area, you would have to protect wetlands in the area upstream of the site within the Waccamaw watershed. So in sum, I was really excited to be able to use what I learned in the landscape architecture program in terms of sustainability and ecological concepts, and in this roundtable series to encourage a city and towards sustainable thinking, and also just think about how it could be pushed even further, thinking about policy and larger landscape change.